Hello and welcome to the Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today we are going to discuss various important issues appearing in the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 24th July 2019. The news to be covered are given on your screen and the corresponding timestamps can be found in description as well as comment section below. Now, let's begin our today's discussion. As a part of our continuous discussion with regards to the question asked in prelims examination of this year, the question we have today is consider the following statements. The first statement reads coal sector was nationalized by the government of India under Indira Gandhi. Second statement reads now coal blocks are allocated on lottery basis. Third statement reads till recently India imported coal to meet the shortages of domestic supply, but now India is self-sufficient in coal production. In this regard, let's now have a look at Daily News Simplified dated 24th February 2018. As you can see, here it is clearly shown that Coal Mines Nationalization Act of 1973, all coal holdings were transferred to Coal India Limited. Hence, coal sector was nationalized in 1973 under the government of Indira Gandhi. Hence, option B as well as option C can be eliminated easily. Now we are left with option A as well as option D. Well, it is in same discussion. Here is a mention of auctioning of coal mines, whereas option 2 reads coal blocks are allocated on lottery basis. Hence, it is incorrect. So now we are left with only option A. Hence, A, that is 1 only, is the correct answer. Hence, for anybody who followed Daily News Simplified dated 24th February 2018 could have marked the correct answer of this question. Here, one more important thing which needs to be focused upon is the technique of elimination. As we have already discussed, the moment you know that a particular statement is wrong, you can easily eliminate few options and then the probability of getting the correct answer also increases. On this note, let's start with the first news item for today's analysis. So here we have an article appearing on page number 10 which reads Faltering Steps in the Anti-AIDS March. Well, the article is based on the joint UN program on AIDS, which is also known as UN AIDS, and the topic is important for your mains examination under GS paper 2 with respect to the topics issues related to development and management of social sectors relating to health, important international institutions and agencies, and effect of their policies on India's interests. Now, let's have a look at various important dimensions related to this particular topic. Well, firstly, let's start with understanding what exactly is this AIDS. It refers to acquired immune deficiency syndrome. Well, it is caused by human immunodeficiency viruses. It is a condition in humans in which progressive failure of immune system happens, and it is this weakening of immune system which allows other infections to thrive, which may even include tuberculosis as well as cancer. Basically, it is sexually transmitted infection and occurs by the contact or with the transfer of blood as well as other bodily fluids. However, in other cases, non-sexual transmission can also occur from infected mother to child during childbirth or exposure to her bodily fluids and through the milk during breastfeeding. Now the basic question is, why exactly is it so important to combat AIDS? Now here a few facts can help us find the answer to this question. Well, every year 1.7 million people are infected with AIDS. Moreover, 1 million people lose their life every year due to AIDS. On top of it, most of the people who are affected by AIDS are from poor, marginalized and criminalized communities. Hence, they are vulnerable group of people who are mainly impacted by AIDS. This makes it even more important to fight this problem of AIDS both at national as well as global level. One very important thing which need to be understood here is it is not just about treating this AIDS syndrome. It is also very important to destigmatize this thing as well as ensure that people who are suffering from AIDS don't have to undergo any type of discrimination. Talking of various efforts taken by Indian government in this regard, it is under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. There is a division called National AIDS Control Organization, which was established in the year 1992. And it is under this, a national strategic plan has been launched, which aims at eradicating HIV/AIDS by the year 2030 in India, hence paving the way for an AIDS-free India. It is also in line with Sustainable Development Goal number 3, which relates to good health and well-being. There are three zeros which form the basis of this national strategic plan. They are zero new infections, zero AIDS related deaths. As we have already discussed, around 1 million people lose their lives every year due to AIDS. And the third zero is zero discrimination. As we have already talked about stigma and discrimination which is associated with AIDS. Hence, this is a very multi-dimensional strategy which has been adopted by the government. Well, this program aims to achieve its target in a phased manner, where the first phase pertains to year 2020, by which it has to achieve 75% lesser new infections, and a very important strategy here is 90-90-90 strategy. Now, let's understand about this very interesting strategy. Here, first 90 relates to all people living with HIV should know their HIV status, that is 90% diagnosed. The second 90 means all the people who have been diagnosed with this infection should receive sustained antiretroviral therapy, hence treatment. The next 90 relates to of all the people receiving this antiretroviral therapy should have viral suppression. So now this 90-90 strategy is very important for both preliminary examination as well as your mains examination. Now the next target relates to elimination of mother to child transmission as well as elimination of stigma and discrimination associated with people who are suffering from AIDS. Hence, it is by the year 2020, this national strategic plan aims to achieve this much. Well, the next phase would be by year 2024, it aims to achieve this target of 80% reduction in the new HIV infections. Moreover, this 90-90-90 strategy would transform into 95-95-95 strategy. That means 95% of the people living with HIV will know their HIV status, that is diagnosed. 95% of the people diagnosed with HIV infection will receive this antiretroviral therapy. Moreover, 95% of the people receiving this treatment will have this viral suppression. Hence, in this phased manner, we aim to achieve this HIV/AIDS free India by the year 2030. Well, in this regard, the Government of India came up with this HIV and AIDS Prevention and Control Act in the year 2017, where on one hand, it addresses the issue of discrimination against the people living with AIDS at workplace, schools and colleges, hospitals and other public places. It also prohibits segregation of any AIDS infected person. At the same time, it has got special provision for women suffering with AIDS. In case a woman is pregnant, she cannot be subjected to sterilization or abortion without her consent. At the same time, the state as well as center have to make various diagnostic facilities related to this antiretroviral therapy, and they also have to make sure that information has to be disseminated regarding these facilities. In order to make this act even more effective, there is a provision for robust grievance redressal mechanism in which an ombudsman has to be appointed at the state level in order to inquire any violation under the provisions of this act. And in case of any violation, it may attract a jail sentence up to 2 years as well as a fine up to rupees 1 lakh or both. So now, various provisions of this act points out towards how multidimensional this act is in its various provisions. Other than that, central government has also focused on 360 degrees multimedia campaigns in order to disseminate various information regarding this AIDS as well as Mission Sampark in order to make sure that all the HIV affected individuals undergo this antiretroviral therapy. Now, having understood about AIDS as well as what is being done by Government of India to combat this pandemic, let's now understand about UN AIDS and the issue which has appeared in today's newspaper. Well, it is the Joint United Nations Program on HIV and AIDS, which is also called UNAIDS. Its basic aim is accelerated, comprehensive as well as coordinated global action against AIDS. It was established in the year 1994 and has its headquarters at Geneva in Switzerland. Well, the issue that has appeared in today's newspaper relates to the current executive director has recently departed, and it is the new executive director which would be coming to head this UNAIDS, and at the same time there are people who are questioning its relevance. So now the author has shown his concern on this issue of questioning the relevance of UN-AIDS and has also given various points in support of this UN-AIDS program and how it has to be made more effective. Well, the author talks about how many regions across the world are impacted with this AIDS pandemic, which include Central Asia, West Asia, Russia, as well as many countries of East Europe. At this time, there are people from LGBT community as well as many drug users who are impacted by this. And in case they are not focused upon by this UN AIDS program, it would lead to further spread of AIDS across the regions. Secondly, authors point out towards how vulnerable sections of the society, as we have already talked about, poor, marginalized, as well as criminalized section of the society are mainly impacted by AIDS, and it is not easy for them to access the treatment which has been provided. Hence, the awareness has to be there as well as destigmatization and discrimination has to be addressed properly. Last but not the least, point here highlighted by the author is weak country leadership. It means that people who are heading various country level position in high prevalence country lack core competence, hence they are less effective. So now these three main issues have been highlighted by the author, and at this point of time, questioning the relevance of this UNAIDS program can be a big disaster. Moreover, this is the time when new executive director has to restore the relevance as well as credibility of this UNAIDS program, as well as address various issues so that this accelerated, comprehensive and coordinated global action against AIDS is successfully achieved. On this note, let's move to the next news item. So here we have a news item appearing on page number 11, which reads, Giving Ties with Seoul a Facelift. Well, the article is based on India-South Korea relations and various dimensions associated with it. The topic is important for General Studies paper 2 under International Relations. Well, before starting with India-South Korea relations, let's start with the basic background, that is Look East as well as Act East policy, which have been very important pillars of India's foreign policy. Well, it was in 1990s post-liberalization or LPG era. So in the first phase, which ended in the year 2003, the Look East policy became the main pillar of our foreign policy, which had two main objectives. One was economic and the other one was strategic. Well, it was mainly focused on ASEAN economies, which include Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, as well as Brunei. Well, this policy resulted in developed trade with these countries. Well, it was post year 2003. The scope of this policy was expanded to include non-ASEAN countries of the region. And it is now the scope included countries like South Korea, North Korea, Japan, and other countries of this region. Moreover, it was in the year 2014 that this policy was altogether upgraded to the policy of Act East. So now this Act East policy was broader both in scope as well as dimensions as compared to Look East policy. This policy focused not only on the Southeast Asia but also included Asia Pacific region. Hence, it is in this respect we have to see India's relationship with South Korea and various dimensions associated with it. Well, the article, which is based on India-South Korea relationship, talks about how India-South Korea relationship has improved in recent past. At the same time, there is more potential for further development in relationship. Well, India and South Korea consider their relationship to be a special strategic partnership which rests on the foundation of deep-rooted historical and cultural bonds, shared universal values of democracy, free market economy, rule of law, as well as a region which is based on peaceful, stable, secure, free, open and inclusive rules. Well, where on one hand, India considered South Korea as a very important partner in its Act East policy. Similarly, South Korea also considered India a central pillar in its new Southern policy. So here we can see complementarity which is there in the foreign policy of both the countries, that is India as well as South Korea. Well, now let's focus on various individual dimensions of Indo-South Korea relationship. These dimensions can revolve around bilateral trade, socio-cultural relationship as well as security. Let's talk about the first dimension, that is trade, where India exports products like mineral fuel, oil, distillates, cereals, as well as iron and steel. On the other hand, India imports from South Korea automobile parts and mainly telecommunication equipments, etc. Both the countries have a trade target of $50 billion to be achieved by the year 2030. However, this target is most likely to be missed because of a few factors. The first one include comprehensive economic partnership agreement between the both countries, which is now almost stagnant. Moreover, both the countries agreed to reduce tariffs on various goods of import as well as export, which has again failed to see its completion. Hence, it is not easy to reach this target of $50 billion by the year 2030. Well, now, the second dimension is socio-cultural relations. India and South Korea are working on a monument of Queen Suriratna, who is also known as Hur Hoang Oke in South Korea, and this monument has to be constructed in Ayodhya as a joint project to celebrate their shared heritage. Well, it is said that this Queen Suriratna went to South Korea around 48 AD and married King Suro of Korean royal family. A large number of Koreans still trace their ancestry to this legendary princess. However, India is still to create a distinct image among South Koreans, as many South Koreans fail to differentiate between India and Indonesia. Moreover, there is still social as well as economic discrimination against Indians living and working in South Korea. Now we'll move to the third dimension, that is security. Under this dimension of security, it has to be kept in mind that the geopolitical importance of Indo-Pacific region is immense, and it is only by collaborating with South Korea we can secure our interest in that particular region. The very first thing under this dimension is defense collaboration with South Korea, under which we have started co-production of K9 Thunder howitzer guns. Moreover, there is also regular security dialogue between India's National Security Advisor as well as intelligence agencies of South Korea. Moreover, India and South Korea both support the denuclearization of Korean Peninsula, which include both North Korea as well as South Korea. One thing has to be kept in mind that South Korea supports India's membership of Nuclear Suppliers Group, that is NSG. Now, one most important dimension which has to be kept in mind with regards to India-South Korea relationship is ongoing trade war between China and USA. So now, it is because of this trade war, South Korea is not able to sell its products which are produced in China in USA. Hence, it may think of shifting its facilities in China to some other countries, and in this respect, India can be a country in which various South Korean facilities can be established in order to export their products to USA. Moreover, South Korea also supports India's Make in India vision, as evident from a big mobile manufacturing facility which was started by Samsung in NCR region, which is one of the largest mobile phone manufacturing facility of Samsung anywhere in the world. We have seen various dimensions of India-South Korea relationship, which include trade, socio-cultural, security, as well as this newest dimension of trade war. Moreover, this has to be kept in mind that this special strategic partnership has to be further nurtured in order to reap full benefits by both the countries, that is India as well as South Korea. On this note, let's move to the next news item. Well, here's this article which appears on page number 11 and reads, Making Water-Guzzling Thermal Plants Accountable. Well, the topic is important under GS Paper 3 from the perspective of environment and conservation. Well, before starting our discussion, let's have a look at the latest stats according to the Government of India with respect to various sectors in Indian power scenario. As here we can see clearly, around 63% of the power generated in India is from thermal sources, that is coal, gas and oil. Hence, thermal power plants are very crucial when it comes to the power sector in India. Well, this article basically highlights, in order to achieve this goal of 100% electrification, India will have to double its installed power capacity, and in order to achieve that, coal has been projected as the backbone of electricity sector till 2030 and beyond. However, on the other side, seeing it from the environmental angle, thermal power plants consume significant amount of water. Moreover, most of the thermal power plants in India are located in water stressed regions, and this water shortage leads to disruption in electricity generation, which ultimately leads to loss to Indian economy. Having understood this basic context, now we'll have a look at various dimensions involved in this particular issue. Now let's have a look at various regulations with respect to water usage by thermal power plants. So the first one is by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, which it issued by a notification in 2015 where it set the limits for water consumption by thermal power plants. However, later these limits were relaxed by the ministry. The second such regulation is by Central Electricity Authority, by which it released a format for thermal power plants to report their annual water consumption. Well, under this regulation, the thermal power plant are supposed to clarify their metered as well as unmetered usage, along with specifying the source from which they have used it. And in case there is any deviation from the norms specified, they have to give a proper reason along with corrective measure adopted. Well, another regulation is in the form of penalty, which is provided by Environmental Protection Act of 1986 under Section 15. This section of Environmental Protection Act provides for a blanket penalty for flouting any provision of this Environmental Protection Act or rules under it. Well, now let's have a look at various ways in which these regulations can be further strengthened so that their purpose is fulfilled. Well, various suggestions which can be used in order to strengthen these regulations are: very first thing is the thermal power plants should disclose the amount of water they have consumed in previous years. Well, only when this previous year data of their water consumption is there, a baseline for water consumption per thermal power plant can be established. For example, if X amount of water is used by a thermal power plant, a baseline can be set on the basis of this X liters, and subsequent reduction in water consumption can be quantified. That is, the ministry can come up with a guideline that how this thermal power plant has to move from this X liter to X minus Y liters. So that is how we calculate the baseline and the subsequent reductions. All the data which is given by the thermal power plant should be put in the public domain, which will ensure transparency. Well, various thermal power plants, in order to substantiate their disclosure, should submit documents like water bills so that it is verifiable as well as authentic. Moreover, as we have talked about the blanket penalty under Section 15 of Environmental Protection Act, in place of such blanket penalties, there should be specific penalties for controlling water consumption by thermal power plant. And it is only with specific penalties these regulations can be further strengthened. Moreover, various relevant officials who are in charge of enforcement of such rules and regulations need to be identified. Moreover, their role should be clearly defined along with capacity building. That is, they need to be trained adequately so that they have an idea that how to enforce these regulations in a proper manner so as to achieve the required objective. So now these were various dimensions associated with the water usage by thermal power plants. However, one thing has to be kept in mind that we have to focus on shifting from non-renewable sources of energy to renewable sources of energy, which include solar, wind, biomass, to name a few. As sustainable development can only be ensured when there is this focus from non-renewable to renewable sources of energy. On this note, let's move to the next news item. Well, here we have a news item appearing on page number 16, which reads, IMF cuts India's growth forecast for 2019-22 7%. Well, here there is a mention of IMF's World Economic Outlook report. The topic is important from your preliminary examination, as such reports are asked in preliminary exam as well as for your mains examination under General Studies Paper 3 Economy. Well, this question appeared in the preliminary examination of the year 2014 and reads, which of the following organizations bring out the publication known as World Economic Outlook? As it's very clear that the answer is A, that is International Monetary Fund. Now let's have a look at various dimensions highlighted by this report. Well, one thing you have to keep in mind is that this report is published twice a year and it analyzes various global economic developments during medium as well as near term. Well, the report has highlighted three dimensions which are sluggish global growth, regarding investment and consumption expenditure, and India's GDP forecasts. Let's now talk about the first dimension. Well, the report talks about a subdued global economic growth at merely 3.2% because of various factors which include trade war between US and China, uncertainty over consequences of Brexit, as well as various geopolitical tensions which are leading to increase in crude oil prices. Well, it has highlighted how investment and consumption expenditure, both in advanced as well as developing economies, have remained subdued, leading to a slowdown in their growth rates. It was in the last edition of the report in April 2019, it estimated Indian GDP to grow at 7.3%. However, in this edition, it has said that GDP growth may slow down to 7% on account of subdued consumption expenditure. Hence, in this way, it analyzed global economic developments for both medium as well as near terms. Now, let's also have a look at way forward based on present circumstances. Well, the first and foremost thing here is various issues which are related to these trade wars between US-China as well as other geopolitical tensions need to be sorted, as they are also a main reason behind sluggish global growth as said by the report. Moreover, both advanced as well as developing economies can go for policy cuts in order to boost consumption as well as investment expenditure. Well, on this note, let's move to the next news item. So here we have a news item appearing on page number 11, which reads the complexities of Naga identity. Well, the issue relates to register of indigenous inhabitants of Nagaland, which would act as a master list for various indigenous inhabitants of Nagaland. The topic is important for General Studies Paper 2 of Mains Examination under Government Policies and Interventions for Development of Various Sectors, as well as various mechanisms, laws and institutions for the betterment of vulnerable sections. Well, it was in the Daily News Simplified dated 7th July 2019. The basic background of the issue relating to RIIN, that is Register of Indigenous Inhabitants of Nagaland, was discussed. It was in this DNS, it was discussed what exactly is RIIN, why exactly is it being introduced, how is it being done, what are the benefits, and other related dimensions. Well, other than this, dimensions associated with the impact of this particular decision, which relates to complex demography, outcome similar to NRC in Assam, existing volatility because of the FSPA, and various other dimensions were also discussed. Moreover, since the state is under ILP, that is inner line permit, there are bound to be more complexities associated with the process. Now, we are going to focus on various possible challenges which are highlighted in the article we are discussing. These are 4 possible challenges which this process of RIIN may have to face. Well, the first one relates to the selection of a cutoff date. Well, in the official notification, there is no mention of such a cutoff date. However, till date, indigenous inhabitant certificates have been issued with respect to the date of 1st December 1963. Well, it is a date when Nagaland was created. However, if in RIIN also this cutoff date is taken, various migrants from neighboring states who entered the state after this date have to be excluded. Well, the second possible challenge pertains to complexities in case of deciding the claims in respect to children of non-Naga father as well as non-Naga children adopted by Naga parents. The third possible challenge relates to opposition by the group National Socialist Council of Nagaland, that is NSCN. Well, it is this Isaac Movia faction of this NSCN group which is against the process of compiling RIIN. According to it, all Nagas are indigenous to their land by the virtue of common history. Moreover, it is this faction of NSCN, that is NSCN Isaac Movia, which is involved in peace talks with Government of India. Moreover, in this regard, a framework was also signed with Government of India in the year 2015. Well, in this regard, the content of this framework agreement is yet to be made public. Hence, such a process of RIIN can lead to speculations with regards to integration of various Naga inhabited areas in other northeast states which include Manipur, Assam, and Arunachal Pradesh. Hence, this is the reason why ISEC movie of action of NSCN doesn't want such an exercise of RIIN to be conducted in Nagaland. So the last possible challenge is related to the idea of linking RIIN with inner line permit. Well, it is because of this linking of RIIN with ILP, there can be a issue faced by various inhabitants who are not indigenous inhabitant with regards to the trade and other economic activities in the state. Hence, all these possible challenges, be it related to cutoff date or regarding various children, as well as opposition by NSCN and relation to inline permit, need to be addressed by taking on board various stakeholders so that this issue of RIIN doesn't adversely impact any section of Indian citizens living in the state of Nagaland. On this note, let's move to the next news item. Well, here we have a news item which appears on page number 10, which reads, "A bridge across the India-Pakistan abyss." Well, the issue is related to Kartarpur Corridor Plan, which has been discussed in the Daily News Simplified dated 13th July 2019, and all the dimensions associated with this topic have been comprehensively addressed in this DNS. Hence, you can follow this DNS in order to cover this issue. On this note, let's move to the practice questions of the day. Well, here you have on screen various prelims questions for practice. Now we'll take a pause of 5 seconds and then discuss various answers. Well, the first question reads, the 90-90-90 strategy is related to combating which of the following disease? The options are tuberculosis, which is incorrect, cancer is incorrect, and AIDS is the right answer. As we have already discussed, the strategy is related to combating AIDS. The next question reads, which of the following country is not a member of ASEAN grouping? First is China, which is correct. Second is South Korea, correct. Third is Thailand. It is incorrect as it is a member of ASEAN. Hence the answer would be 1 and 2 only, that is D. The next question reads, Mission Sampark is aimed at, option A reads, bringing more children to school, which is incorrect. Option B reads, boosting e-governance across the country, again incorrect. Option C reads, bringing more AIDS patient under treatment, which is correct, as antiretroviral therapy will be expanded under this mission Sampark. Next question reads, with reference to the World Economic Outlook report, consider the following statements. First statement is, it is released by World Bank, which is incorrect as it is released by IMF. Second statement reads, it is released twice a year, which is correct. Hence the answer would be B, that is 2 only. This brings us to the end of today's discussion. Let's move to the question of the day.